Right, so that was on the Joe Rogan show on the 1st of November. Joe Rogan has 11.9 million followers on Twitter. I'm not sure how big his show's audience is. Imagine it's much larger than that. As you know, Elon Musk has about 161 million followers on Twitter. So that kicked off a lot of conversation around on-chain versus off-chain art. And I suppose just before I go on to just a disclaimer, we're not wanting to have a go at off-chain art. We're just trying to show the differences and the strengths of on-chain art. Oh, turns out I just had to click that to make it play. We don't need to see that again. 29th of October, this company called Bankless, unfortunately, they haven't really been super friendly to Cardano over time. It seems like that relationship's getting better. They did their own tweet about on-chain art. They've got 276,000 Twitter followers. They actually did a thread comparing the difference between off-chain art and on-chain art. So they said there's a growing demand for on-chain NFTs, but not all on-chain tokens are equal. These are the 5 types of on-chain. I'll save you the rest of the conversation. So it basically went from 0, which was off-chain or using IPFS, to some different types of on-chain stuff you can do on Ethereum that's kind of on-chain, but some of it still exists elsewhere. But they finished with number 5, fully on-chain. This is the gold standard as far as token durability goes. This storage method is when all the data and media needed to view or reproduce an NFT content is stored directly on the same chain the NFT was issued on. They've called out e.g. Ethereum, obviously e.g. Cardano. You can do that on Cardano.
So basically, this is where the blockchain becomes the actual medium itself, and because it can house code-based art, there's an entire new universe of possibilities just within that one thing.
Right, so why on-chain art? Yes. So long story short, art movements are often a reflection of its time, capturing the essence of its era. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I definitely feel like we're in the era of blockchain, and definitely sort of advancing technology which blockchain can support. NFTs address some of physical art's challenges, namely provenance and permanence. NFTs guarantee authenticity via a public immutable ledger, and on-chain art embeds the artwork within the blockchain, ensuring its permanence. And a keynote there is that blockchains archive on-chain art for free, basically. You're not relying on an external source to house your media. Moving on, made no notes for this one. So we consider blockchain a new artistic medium. The art created with code is stored on chain, which is a revolutionary medium. Storing artwork on chain can be costly. However, on Cardano, we have low deterministic fees, although the challenge we have is currently there's a 16 kilobyte limit to what you can put on chain. However, that limit is also an enjoyable challenge for a lot of people like this man. And we've actually seen that before in other art movements, like the demo scene, which is where people basically get like old computer equipment or different bits of technology and make cool art either on or using it, usually in a very simple way that produces something entertaining.
And yeah, sure. And from a coding perspective, it all becomes about how can the code that is the art piece, because this doesn't have any external libraries, everything is inside that one piece, how can it fold in on itself and be so fundamental that it can produce that complicated artwork in, 16 kilobytes of code is basically nothing. Your mouse driver is probably 100 times bigger than that. A JPEG thumbnail is many times bigger than that. It's like it's basically a very, very small amount of code, and so the ideas and how it has to be engineered has to be really fundamental in order to get interesting things on it. So you couldn't have like a whole load of point data in there to, say, create like a complex image. You'd have to come up with a more clever way of doing that. So you've got a question?
Why could it, if there's lots of data in different places and they're permanent, why couldn't people share some library?
That is possible. However, that comes with the downside of you suddenly need a viewer that can assemble all of those parts to be able to view it. The art that we create is self-contained and doesn't need any viewer. It could be ran by a phone. It could be ran by a web browser, as is. So it doesn't require anything basically. Whereas obviously, if you could do that. You could have it so that it pulled the libraries from various different parts and fragments and construct them into the actual art piece and then execute it. I mean, this is something that we're looking at, but it comes with the massive downside is it needs a viewer. It's not innate. It's like getting your art piece, your art piece canvas, and then having to pull it from different fragments of canvases all throughout your art museum, and then you can look at it. There needs to be a viewer, a person that goes and pulls that together, whereas with the ones that we create that are within the 16K boundary, they just work. They can be embedded inside, because they're written in HTML5 JavaScript. You can literally just take that art piece and stick it in your website, and it works as is. No wiring, no anything else was required, which we think is a really special thing. Yeah.
Good question, though.
Yeah, that is a good question.
So the conclusion on why on-chain art. So the blockchain provides both a record of ownership and a new medium for art. Its decentralized nature makes it permanent. A point I liked that I heard a few weeks ago was that for the first time, art and the money used to acquire it live on the same infrastructure, the same platform. So the NFTs minted on Cardano, your money, your ADA is on Cardano, and those two things exist in the same space. And also, just a benefit as an artist or a digital artist, now your collectors are pretty much anyone in the world with a laptop or mobile phone and an internet connection. Obviously, you need a Cardano wallet as well, but this is all available stuff. All right, now I'm going to try a little demonstration, and I'm using Pete's equipment, so this is, hopefully it all works. NFT on Cardano. I quite like this one. It's a pretty cool piece of art. This is an off-chain piece of art. Now, it's, I don't know how well you guys will know this, but, and it's pretty small, but if you look under storage, the second white point at the top, it says it's IPFS. Immutable, does it say? Yeah. Yep. Cool. So it's an IPFS piece. So this is an off-chain piece of art, and it's pretty cool. And all right, here's my mouse. Now, if you click on this minted date, it actually, PoolPM gives you a different view of the NFT. It'll show you the metadata, and it'll also show you another representation of the art, pretty similar to this. And it gives you a bit more information, I suppose, about the NFT. Now, just because we're on a different laptop, we've set this one up on a different tab. So this is that minted view, right? It's split it into two sides, and on the left, that's what's in your NFT. So it's like, I don't know, 200 or 300 characters of code, and they have an IPFS link, which your browser will do a call out, get that image back and show it, right? But what we've simulated over on this side is IPFS being unavailable. And we have seen that before. I think it might have been early 2022. It was only for a few hours, but a lot of IPFS images broke. Now, IPFS does cost a little bit of money. It's actually quite a good solution. It's much better than a company or someone running their own server. IPFS can be free if you've got your own hardware and run your own node, but obviously those things have costs and require maintenance and ongoing support. But if you're not going to run your own infrastructure, there is a cost to using IPFS. You also have to pin the image, because if it becomes unpinned, it'll disappear. And of course, you're relying on IPFS being available and still in existence. All probably pretty likely stuff, but that challenge of not using IPFS is a motivation for us and something we really like about on-chain art. So over here, that's what your browser gets from what's stored on Cardano. It's been unable to access the IPFS images. So if IPFS was down, that's your NFT. I'm just going to switch to, this is a piece of on-chain artwork from a friend of ours, or a couple of friends of ours. Thought this one was just a cool demo, because we're going to show some blockgen stuff soon. But this is from a collection called Dusk. Uses pretty much all the same sort of stuff that we do at BlockGen. It's actually interactive. If I bring my mouse down, it should, no, it's not going to follow me. Oh, there it goes. It was just doing a smiley too, they were cool. But if we go to Minted, which I think is that one, got your split view again. Right? This time, you've got a lot more characters in your metadata. And because everything there is all that's needed for your browser to render this image, it's doing it. So that's on Cardano, but so is all of this. I think that's about all I wanted to say, but that's, I don't know if I can scroll down on that, but if we scroll down that page, there's quite a lot of text. Fits into the 16 KB limit and makes that happen. And we're back. All right. Why Cardano? I copied this direct from Venster's FAQs. They're another on-chain art platform on Cardano. They had a fairly good explanation, I thought. And so just to read through it, I've referenced them at the bottom. Cardano is an oddball in the crypto space, but its differences are also its strengths. That's especially true for NFTs with the implementation of native tokens. On Cardano, NFTs are not tied to smart contracts, which makes them more homogeneous. Anyone can mint an NFT anywhere, and if conventions are followed, they'll be rendered correctly by any viewer. And that's a big plus for decentralization. All right, moving on to our journey so far. So as I mentioned at the start, our platform launched publicly in April this year. It includes a front-end sales platform that has Cardano wallet integration, a collections gallery of all the minted pieces, and your own personal gallery. The website's there. If anyone's interested to have a look later, there'll be a QR code at the end that has our link tree, so it's all there. You don't need to make notes. Our artist editor platform, which is linked to that front end, is called Construct, which includes a bit of technology that Charles has built called the Canvas Core, and our minting backend. Did you want to talk about Canvas Core?
Sure, I can briefly go into that. For a lot of generative art, you need some kind of library. Obviously, if it's a self-contained piece, you can't have a massive library because something like, there's a few good generative art libraries out there. 3.js is an example of one, P5.js. Both of those libraries are a megabyte, so they're already, I don't know, 1,000 times too big or something. I can't do the maths in my head right now, but way too big. So I created Canvas Core, which is basically like the bare bones of what you need to do minimal generative art. So it includes a few base libraries for things like vector maths and drawing commands and things like that. And yeah, the entire of the Canvas Core library comes to 5K. So it's an absolutely tiny library. But you can do a lot. You'd be surprised how much you can do with that. Yeah.
And yeah, I mentioned this before too, but since the public launch, we've released 13 on-chain collections in total from various artists. including 5 community code jam collections. And code jams is something Charles came up with, which is basically where we nominate a theme. It's mostly run in our Discord at the moment, but that theme goes out. Anyone can then join, jump on the platform and try and create a piece of art using that theme. We'll usually have, and there's already a bunch of example pieces up there so people can play, copy stuff, all that sort of thing. And essentially, at the end of that, when we close the submissions, the community votes on their favourite pieces, and whichever one's voted as the most popular or the best piece, that gets minted as a collection. The thing we do to reward that winner is, so the winner gets a free gold framed version of that NFT. It's the first piece of the collection. Anyone that's contributed a valid piece in the code jam gets a free version of that same collection as well. It's a silver framed version called the Contenders Edition. And then we put the rest of the collection up for sale. We've actually built, or the guys built a Dutch auction process. So essentially it starts at a certain price and steps down over time. Once that auction's finished, we calculate all the sales, we work out an average price, and if you've paid more than the average price, you'll actually get refunded. And if there's any pieces left of that collection, it then mints at the average price until the collection's gone or the time expires. So still part of our journey, obviously, is the Construct platform. I've got a bit of a demo here. Is it going to be weird? So just before it starts, so this is the platform that Charles and the team have built. Over on the far left panel there, you've basically got your code editor. It's set in a few different sections. You've got like functions set up and draw. There's another, well, you can't even see any of those, and there's another one down there for your collections where you can actually generate a collection. The next panel's got like all the helpful stuff basically that the guys have set up to help. So a lot of shortcuts. If you want to draw a rectangle, copy paste the code. The code's there, you can tweak it how you need, but there's a lot of stuff in there. There's also links to, is it W3S school?
Yes.
So if you're not sure, most of these things have a link to that W3S school, so you can read a bit more about it.
Yeah, so basically the entire of the Canvas core is documented in that cheat sheet column, along with pasteable examples that if you're a beginner artist or coder, you can do some things by just placing some of those commands together. Or if you're an advanced coder and you understand the structure and syntax of JavaScript, you can weave those together into something a lot more elaborate.
Then you've basically got the properties of your collection, and you can set up certain tags to give yourself different fields here. And we're going to just change some of those now, just so you can see how you can build variety into a collection. This is just one of the example pieces that Charles coded up for the platform. And obviously, this last panel is your live editor, so that is the output of your code, and that's essentially what your NFT would look like.
So things like the properties where you can switch out and chop and change pieces of code, that basically lets an artist put tag markers inside that code to say this belongs to this particular property. So if they want a property red, they can go, I want that piece of code in there for red, and then they can put one in for blue, green, whatever. And it allows basically a custom piece of code to be created based on those property blocks to become the art that you're actually seeing on the right-hand side. So it means that if you put a property in to the artwork that is not used, it takes up no space. If it's used, then it's there. And that's basically the model that we've gone for building the generative art. Because there's only 16K, it's got to be stretched as far as possible. Go on then.
Can you import a product back into the construct to be able to change
What do you mean by import a product?
Can you bring something from outside of?
Can you import what's produced back into the construct software in order to change it?
Not really. Well, I suppose you could. You could take the output code, and then if you wanted to put that in as a property, yes, that's possible. But you'd rarely do that because it's best breaking down whatever that product is into actual properties in the first place. But I guess it depends on what you're doing with it and how you're wielding it.
Oh, so the output is not like what you see on the left. That's just the construction process.
Yes. So that's the readable construction process. We internally, there's a whole compilation process which basically takes that JavaScript code, compiles it down into a single URL link that includes everything into a self-contained web page in a single link.
Right, and that can't be reversed?
You can, but it's not readable. All the variable names get changed, everything gets reduced. It goes through this thing called Terser, which is a minifier which understands JavaScript syntax very deeply and compacts it down. It will change around certain pieces of code to make sure that it is as compact as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you try and reverse engineer it, it won't look quite the same.
But you can go into them and you can have a look at how they work. The logical side of the code is identical.
I'll just point out too, so this is free to use. Anyone can jump onto our website, jump into Construct and start playing. We do ask that we do get people to register an account using just an email address, but that process sets up your own personal workspace so that as you progress through your journey, you're saving your work in progress. The only thing BlockGen gets out of the whole process is a 15% slice on whenever a collection is minted, and that 15% goes right back into supporting and updating the platform. So that's how we're hoping to sustain the platform, basically. So a couple of collections. I think this is going to autoplay. So this was the first NFT collection that was minted on the platform by Charles, called ZenFlow. Pretty cool piece, runs fully on chain.
Do you want me to quickly explain?
Yeah, go.
So this is using a concept called flow fields. I've got a tiny little flow field library that I've constructed, yeah, it uses a combination of that flow field library plus I came up with some maths for magnetic fields, and so it's got a model of magnetic fields, and then it puts that through a flow field, and you get these lines that trace complicated magnetic patterns. And so I created a collection of these with different kinds of colors and flow field style patterns. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Next, we have a collection called Creating Ripples by Null Hashpixel. Null's got a couple of different collections on Cardano already, raw sash beasts and implicit squiggles, amongst a few other things. But this was actually the winning piece of our very first code jam.
So he's using a completely different approach to this. He's actually he's grabbing the entire of the HTML canvas, and he's going in and he's written a program that will modify the pixels to create those shapes and patterns in real time.
So it's really great to see this, and I just have a question. It seems these art pieces I've seen so far seem to be like some mathematical art. Like, how does it handle a traditional sort of JPEG picture?
It's not for that.
It won't work.
No. It can create something probably more intricate and complicated than a JPEG, but reproducing an actual JPEG of a specific picture, it's just not for that. It's for generative art.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you could, a clever artist could wield it in a way that could create a picture as detailed as a JPEG, you know, even with you know, even with like a scene, a setting with like, you know, with characters in or something like that, that would be possible. But they would take a totally different approach. It would never come from a JPEG and be converted into something like this. It would be a creation of generative art and maths that creates something, you know, creates detail much greater than a JPEG. So for example, the ZenFlow pieces that are there, if they're run in the maximum resolution that the canvas core has, because you can actually click on these because they're interactive, and you can set the actual resolution on the back of them that you want it to output in. It can output in 16,000 by 16,000 print quality picture, which we struggle to get a JPEG of that size. You can, some people do, but they take an incredible large space, so that 16K program outputs a file of nearly 500 meg at print quality. Yeah.
We've got one more example. This one's by Hookman, who's one of the team members. Collection called True Calls. So just another example of the art that's been minted out of the platform. All right, so next is a collection called Sin Circles, and this one was my adventures using the platform. So basically, I've done a little bit of coding. I did some processing and some JavaScript, not a great deal. Enough so that the platform looked familiar to me, though, in terms of the layout of the code. And